to get started here. So I'll do a brief introduction of myself. My name is Jennifer Clayton. I am the Attorney Wellbeing Program Manager for New York State Bar Association, and I'm here to introduce Elizabeth Pyjove. Elizabeth was here on Zoom with us for Thanksgiving, doing a special gratitude practice related to Thanksgiving. And when I introduced her for that, I said she had the trifecta because she has a background in, she's a lawyer, so a background in law, meditation, and neuroscience. So those three things I think really bring us together here as we learn the science of compassion. So like I said, Elizabeth's a lawyer, meditation teacher, scholar, theologian, a wellness coach who holds 3 Harvard degrees, speaks 5 languages, gone to Stanford Medical School with a background in neuroscience, and works at a top law firm. She's been meditating for over 15 years now and found that certain practices greatly helped her thrive in the legal career. So sharing these techniques, offering self-compassion, diversity, happiness, energy, connection, and resilience programs through her organization, Self-Compassion for Lawyers. She's taught 10,000 people to meditate in the past 10 years, offered workshops for judges in the Eastern District of New York and the New York Supreme Court, presented at top law firms like Baker McKenzie, Quinn, Emmanuel, and Vinson and Elkins, Harvard Law School, Columbia Law School, and Stanford. She serves on the Committee for Mindfulness and Well-being at the New York City Bar Association and has a weekly meditation class that's taught virtually every week through her organization, the Happiness Sangha. The work is the biggest privilege of her life, and I am so grateful for her to be joining us here again for the second time for this Pre-Valentine's Day program on compassion. So Elizabeth, welcome.
I'm so happy to be here, and a huge thank you to Jennifer Clayton for the introduction and for serving as the Wellbeing Manager for the New York State Bar Association and for adding so many amazing programs that I have loved. So thank you so much for the work you do. And first of all, I am just going to mute everybody for now so it's a little bit quieter. Good. And just put a plus in the chat if you can hear me well, and put 2 pluses if you can see me. And so like the chat in Zoom. So if you can hear me, put 1 plus. If you can see me, put 2 pluses in the chat just to make sure. And because I want to get you participating. Awesome. Thank you, Joshua. Big thank you. We're talking about compassion, which has everything to do with connection and with how we connect in the present moment. So I just thought for a moment, if you don't mind turning on your camera, and with your camera on, just smiling and waving at each other and just saying hi from different corners of the world or of the city or of the state. Oh, hi, thank you. Nice to see you up here. Walter Rivera, Ellie, hi, Nikita, hi, Remla, hi, Julianne, thank you. And for those of you who are feeling shy, I understand, but if you can, just turn on your camera. Hi, Inti, hi, Christina. I just want this to feel like a community. Oh, hi, Joshua. Wonderful. I am so happy to see you. It's so much more fun to talk to. Hi, Maritza. It's so nice to talk to people as opposed to black squares. So if you don't mind keeping your cameras on, just so that this could feel like a conversation, I'll ask you questions. You can ask me questions, especially through the chat. And I think it's just a nicer way to spend an hour together. And what a nice excuse that we have that Valentine's Day is coming up. And we don't need Valentine's Day to be all about chocolates and dates and roses, although I like those things. Valentine's Day can be about warmth and gentleness and making our heart bigger and expanding how we connect to each other. So that is the focus of today's talk and today's practice. Just to keep getting to know you, I really want to make this interactive. So we'll be meditating together. I'd love for you to participate in the chat as I go, to ask questions in the chat as I go. Put a happy face, let's say, put a happy face in the chat if you've never done compassion meditation before. Compassion, self-compassion meditation, put a happy face. And that's fine, that's great. It's just nice to know. And put an exclamation point if you meditate on mindfulness and have a regular mindfulness practice. just to get to know you. Great. And I'd also just love to see where you are. So just put where in the state or where you are geographically right now. New York City, Westchester County, great. Fort Lee, New Jersey, Buffalo. I'm glad we're kind of spread out. Colorado, very cool. New York City, great. Minnesota, Larchmont, very cool. I always think it's interesting to have these different hearts, right? Compassionate hearts spread out, all kind of united, having one experience in real time in a talk like this. Penn, thank you. And then my last question to you, and then I'll talk more. I want to ask you where in your law journey you are. Are you a law student? Are you a lawyer? What kind of lawyer? Are you in the professional development field of law? Kind of what it is that you practice? Are you a judge? Kind of what kind of, how you serve the legal community? And there's so many ways. I just love to see what variety we have. And I'll talk about my journey as well. General counsel, great. Franchise lawyer, solo practitioner, very cool. Okay, and family law attorney. Okay, I think it's always nice to have a variety in these events. And maybe some of you are retired, maybe some of you are associates or students, or I'd love to see that. Great. So my law journey has been very much colored by compassion, by self-compassion, by mindfulness. I went to law school in my mid-late 20s, but since I was 16, I have been meditating and studying mindfulness, compassion, and self-compassion. And I taught it for 3 years before law school. So that, I think, very much changed the level of stress for me. And one way I realized that I can serve the legal community is bringing some of the tools I came into the law with to a wider public, which I do through a talk like this, through my organization, Self-Compassion for Lawyers. One way that the Stanford Center of Compassion, where I did my training, defines compassion scientifically is that compassion is a non-stress response to suffering. In other words, a compassionate response, by definition, neurologically, is not a stress response. So in the world of law, there is such an expectation of perfection, and that can cause a lot of stress. I'm sure you know all the different kinds of stressors that we have in law. A client often wants something faster and cheaper and maybe a different outcome than a lawyer can provide sometimes in certain situations. Lawyers who are more senior can put pressure on lawyers who are more junior, and the other way around. And law is just consuming. Like, it's an all-consuming profession. We all want to reach that level of perfection, and that can result in working too much, which is also a source of stress, also a source of suffering. Having a compassionate response to your clients, to your colleagues, to the people around you, even to your family, I believe that can really help you thrive in the world of law. And that's what we'll talk about today. What compassion is, what it is scientifically. We'll get a feel for compassion through meditations, how to practice it on a daily basis, and how it relates to our careers as lawyers. So again, if you feel like you can do camera on, please do. If not, I understand. I want to start out by bringing in more voices, and maybe even some historical voices about compassion. Some things that the big geniuses have said about compassion throughout the years, throughout the centuries. Compassion is present really in any school of thought, in any world religion. And I'm going to share a part of my screen with you. And I'll show you what some of the geniuses have said about compassion over time. I started out as a classics major in college, so I'm very attached to those ancient Greek, ancient Roman influences. Let's start with Socrates. He's famous for saying that the only thing you know is that you don't know. But Socrates also said that the highest realms of thought are impossible to reach without first attaining an understanding of compassion. So this was 2.5 centuries ago. And today, scientists doing research are showing how compassion actually makes you smarter. How when you practice compassion, you think more clearly. So we'll discuss this research later in this talk, but Socrates had that intuition a very long time ago. Seneca in ancient Rome, this is one of my favorites. Wherever there is a person, there is an opportunity for kindness. From one of my favorite novelists, Leo Tolstoy, author of War and Peace. Everything I know because I love. Again, this connection between intellect and compassion. It actually turns out that our ventromedial prefrontal cortex, this is this part of the brain right behind our eyes, it's responsible for executive function. It's responsible for choosing the difference between a good decision and a better decision or a bad decision. It holds our identity. What do I care about? What's the appropriate way to react in a certain situation? So all of our big picture thinking is behind our ventromedial prefrontal cortex. The more compassion we practice, the better this area of the brain works to make the biggest decisions of our lives. So again, Tolstoy had that intuition. Everything I know because I love. And let's turn to one of the most famous scientists in the world, Albert Einstein. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison of the mind by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. And someone I was lucky enough to study with, the Dalai Lama. Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. And in fact, he's right. From an evolutionary perspective, humans developed the ability to be compassionate because that is the only way we could raise our human babies. Human kids need so much care for much longer than other mammal infants that if we weren't compassionate, we wouldn't survive. If we weren't compassionate to a baby crying, we wouldn't be here today. It's really our compassion that allows us to survive. But in every sense, compassion, not as a necessity, not a luxury. One thing that the research found on compassion is that when you're giving someone compassion, what you're giving that person is health. So it might seem like warmth, compassion, love, those are extras, like that we need food, shelter, kind of the serious things, and that love and compassion can be extras. But in fact, we are healthier. When you give someone that kind of attention, they become healthier. And when you give that attention, you become healthier. So another thing that the Dalai Lama says is, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. And finally, my favorite poet from the my favorite poet from the 20th century, Maya Angelou. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. So I would say that compassion can be the difference between thriving and surviving. And just, there's not that many of us. There's just, so if something resonates as I say it, just put a plus in the chat to let me know it resonates. And if you have any questions as I go or any comments as I go, put that in the chat, and that could be our way of interacting even as I speak, and I'll be looking at it. Oh, thank you for the pluses, Remla. So again, the big picture of compassion. When you are treating others fairly, when you are giving people playfulness, warmth, genuine sweetness, you're not just giving them something that feels good. You're giving them access to more physical health. And there's a cool story behind how this research was done. It actually starts with the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama was sitting in Dharamsala, India, practicing compassion. He starts his compassion practice at 4 a.m. every single morning. We'll do a similar kind of compassion meditation, but a secular version in class today. So the Dalai Lama was sitting there in India, and he had the question, I wonder if compassion has been tested scientifically. And this was 20 years ago. He was just asking, I wonder, has it been tested? What is the research? He did some brief research on his own, but he said, I am going to go where this research is done and talk to the scientists themselves. So the Dalai Lama arranged some appointments with some scientists at Stanford. He took a plane to Palo Alto, California, booked a hotel, and very humbly started conversations with various scientists. And he picked Stanford because it has the strongest neuroscience and psychology department. And he had the same question for every scientist. Have you studied compassion? What does it mean scientifically to you? And what are the effects of compassion? Are there physical effects that you've studied? And what the Dalai Lama learned over these couple of months of having these conversations with these scientists is that there are all kinds of researchers all over the university and all over the world doing this research separately. There's neuroscientists, there's psychologists, there's behavioral scientists, there's geneticists, biomedical researchers, and a lot of them are asking this question, but they're not collaborating. So after having these separate conversations with these scientists, the Dalai Lama had an idea. What if we were to create a center where all these scientists can work together, can do the research together, can collaborate? And then for the first time in the history of the Dalai Lama made a donation to a non-Tibetan cause. No one thought he had so much money, but at that moment he did. And he gave a very big grant to Stanford to start the center, now called the Stanford Center of Compassion. That's where I did my neuroscience training, some research, and the center was formed. And all kinds of scientists from all over the world flocked to do their research, to collaborate through the Stanford Center of Compassion, which became part of the Stanford University School of Medicine and part of the Institute of Translational Neuroscience. So the goal of the center was to bring the tools of psychology and neuroscience to the study of compassion so that this knowledge can benefit society as a whole. And the vision of the center is a world in which, thanks to rigorous research, the practice of compassion can be understood as important for our health as exercise or a nutritious diet. And the research is convincing enough that compassion, being compassionate to others, is as important as eating healthy or exercising. So let me show you another image very briefly, just of the Dalai Lama doing some of these things. So here he is. This is Stanford Medical School. This is him with James Doty, a neuroscientist. A lot of them really bonded. And the program I did was kind of between some of the Dalai Lama's teachers and some neuroscientists. Although the Dalai Lama had the rule that all the research has to be impeccable, and that there's no religion that enters into the Stanford Center of Compassion, that it's not religious in any way, and that the research is flawless. And when he was founding the center, he actually wrote, if you find nothing, if all of this research before was just false leads, that the mission of the center was still fulfilled, all of this research is worth it, you're not looking for anything. But the research they found was absolutely astonishing, and also found that compassion is something that can be trained. It's something that we do have instinctively, but it's something that can greatly be trained. And if it is trained, we are much, much happier. If we look from an evolutionary point of view, we found ourselves here today in the 21st century with incredibly difficult brains. And these brains were formed over thousands of years of evolution, and they were created to look for threats. Our brains, the thing our brains do best, put a plus in the chat if this resonates, the things our brains do best is look for what's wrong. As lawyers, this is exacerbated. Lawyers look for what's wrong in any set of facts, what could go wrong, where the liability could be, where kind of a lawsuit could arise, right? Lawyers think of, even more than evolution helped us figure out to look for what's wrong. Lawyers are trained to look for what's wrong. And that's a seed of suffering. That is a seed of suffering, because our minds think about the negative more than 80% of the time. And more than 95% of those thoughts are the same as yesterday. So we're always thinking the same negative thoughts. And the human brain can be best described as a suffering machine. We look for what we did wrong, what others did wrong, what's wrong in the world. One way we can change that is through compassion. As I mentioned earlier, compassion is a non-stress response to suffering. Our natural response to suffering is definitely not compassion. It's to run away or beat something up or high levels of stress when we don't like something. With compassion, we change that. One of my absolute favorite quotes is from Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, our freedom lies. Compassion gives us that freedom between stimulus and response, or in the kinds of thoughts we can think. And since we're talking about the science, I want to share another one of my favorite studies. It was done by McGrady in 1995, one of the earliest studies. And it's that 5 minutes of compassion boosts our immune system for a whole hour, while 5 minutes of anger dampens our immune system for 5 hours. So with that, let's do a first kind of compassion contemplation. We'll do some relaxation, some mindfulness. We'll do mindfulness because a calm, grounded stability of attention is a prerequisite for compassion. That's where compassion starts. It starts in the present moment. Compassion can only be in the present. It starts with mindfulness. So we'll relax, we'll practice mindfulness, and we'll come to a definition of compassion together in a sensory way through this first meditation. So get comfortable in your seat. I recommend scooting back to the very back of your chair. And let's take some 4, 7, 8 breaths. I'll guide you through this to trigger your parasympathetic nervous system. Inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale out through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll do that 2 more times. The deepest breath you've taken all day, inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale out through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time, inhaling fully, giving yourself a delicious breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale out through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now put one hand inside the other. This is what a regular meditation posture looks like. And put those hands on your lap. Just rest them on your lap. Let your back lean against the chair. Feel your body become heavy in the chair. Let your back be supported. Feel the ground fully holding you up as you close your eyes gently. Turn your gaze inward and let the body release. Feel your forehead relax. Soften the eyebrows. Release the jaw. Relax the left cheek and the right cheek. Nothing to do, nothing to express right now. Imagine you could relax your hair and your sinuses and your ears. And now with your eyes closed, place your awareness on the 2 points where the breath enters the nostrils. So many places your mind can be. Can you place your awareness on the 2 points where the breath enters the nostrils? And now with every inhalation, say in your own mind the word inhale. And with every exhalation, say the word exhale. We'll just do this for 10 seconds. Feel the stillness of the body. Feel the movement of the breath. Feel the relaxation in your face. And from this awareness, we'll move into a compassion contemplation. Think back to a time when someone was really compassionate to you. Play that scene vividly in your mind. When someone was really good to you, warm, helpful, for no apparent reason, when someone was really kind to you. Notice the sensations that were involved as you play this scene in your mind. Now broaden out a little bit and ask yourself, how do you know this was compassion? How do I know that this was compassion? And now remember a time when you felt compassion for another person, when you were able to show someone real compassion. What were those feelings, those sensations that were involved? Was there a strength there? Was there a calm there? Broaden out and ask yourself, how do I recognize compassion? How do you know when you're experiencing it or when you're feeling it? What does it feel like in your body, in your heart? Setting the intention to practice compassion as much as you can. And then with that, take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out through your mouth. Thank yourself for doing this brief relaxation, mindfulness, compassion practice. And as you hear the sound of the bell, gently coming back. And coming back, turning on your cameras if you like. As a side note, why we do this exercise is exactly why we meditate. Playing a scene out in our minds gives us a lot of the same benefits as actually experiencing it. So for example, if I told you to close your eyes and imagine your favorite sizzling dish on a pan, like for example, your favorite pizza being prepared, and you can smell it and you look at it and it's hot and it's fresh, what would happen? What would happen if I told you to do that meditation, which we're not going to do? You would probably start salivating, right? Physically. What this means is that you can have a physical response to something you're imagining. This is the whole program of meditation and psychology. When you go through a mental process, you can have a physical reaction. And that's how you can change your body. That's how you can change your health, through the kinds of thoughts you think. The mental triggers the physical, because the brain is actually not that great at telling the difference between the real and the imagined. Spending some time doing compassion meditation, you get some of the actual benefits of compassion, and it increases your compassion. So now, everyone, just briefly, I'd love to hear a word from each of you. What are some of the words that you associate with compassion? I'll define it officially, but I just want to hear from you first. What are some of the words? Kindness. Warmth, connected, cared for. Great. Softness. maybe space, expansion. Thank you for sharing. Unconditional, yes. So a definition of compassion is the intention of long-term well-being for ourselves and others. So it's not like saying yes to everything, being nice. That's more superficial. Compassion is wanting the long-term well-being for ourselves and others. So scientifically, it's operationalized, defined as an inner experience, an attitude that then gives rise to behavior. So compassion includes first awareness. The first stage is awareness. Compassion is only in the present. Compassion includes an awareness of suffering. So as we define it, compassion is a response to suffering. And you have to see it before you even respond to it. And even that awareness can be challenging. We don't always want to see it for ourselves. We don't always want to see it for others. But it's how do we stay grounded even as we acknowledge that there is suffering. If you look at the etymology of compassion, I'll put this in the chat. The Latin root is the word com, which means with, and pati or pati passusum is the verb to suffer. So it's being present with suffering, but with warmth and with a desire to help. The second part of compassion is a feeling or emotion, a peace, a warmth, a centeredness, a connection, a basic understanding that any human that suffers is a human being that feels pain just like you, a common humanity. And then the third step is motivation to relieve suffering, and action. If you can do something to relieve the suffering, you do. So it's just as helpful to talk about what compassion is not. Compassion is not pity. Pity is like when you feel like you're up here and you look down at somewhere down here and you say, oh, you poor thing, you're in so much trouble. Pity has a hierarchy to it. Compassion is not hierarchical. Compassion is the recognition that we have incredibly difficult brains. We have bodies that can also be difficult. Human life is unpredictable. Anything can happen to any of us tomorrow, that we are in this together. And there is no hierarchy of every human being has endless human dignity. So you look at a human being as an equal with compassion. So not pity, not personal distress. A distinction I want to make is that a compassionate reaction is not an empathetic reaction. Empathetic distress is if Jennifer were to come to me and she was just so upset, and she was just so upset, and something was unfair, and she maybe was crying. And me as an empathetic person, if I was empathetic, I'd start to cry and I'd start to also feel just as bad. And that would be my empathy. But if I started crying and started feeling bad, am I actually helping Jennifer? No, right? She would probably feel guilty for making me feel bad. So now you have two upset people instead of one, and you are not reducing overall suffering in that situation. And if I'm upset, I can't really be there for her. I can't figure out a way to help her. So empathy is when you take on the emotions of someone else. You can think of it as like, when you walk on a beach and there's seagulls, put a plus if you've ever seen seagulls on a beach. And as you get closer, they kind of get uncomfortable and they don't see you, but they see other seagulls and they all kind of get anxious and uncomfortable. That's emotional contagion. Compassion is not emotional contagion. You don't need to take on others' anxiety or pain or suffering. What compassion is a grounded, calm presence where with warmth and giving a kind of tenderness, with composure, with positive energy, you are with another person. So it has that calm, grounded awareness as a base, and then you can help someone because you're not on autopilot. When you're very upset, you tend to be on autopilot. And compassion always contains that openness in responding to others non-judgmentally, a genuine concern for the other person, the wish that they be well. So again, empathy is not compassion. It's also not feeling sorry. Feeling sorry can be kind of superficial. It's also not heroism. It's not heroism, which can come from the ego. Self-compassion takes the ego out of it. Compassion is also not self-sacrifice. It's not, you don't need to right now sell all your belongings and move to a different country. And you don't have to change your life radically. What compassion asks of you is to be kind and present and non-judgmental to the people in your life right now, your loved ones, your colleagues, your clients, strangers on the street. It's a way of treating the people in your life already. So that's some of what compassion is, what compassion is not. And I promise we would talk about why it makes you happy and healthy. So let's address some of the amazing research on that. Compassion stabilizes our blood pressure. It is great for heart health. And I think it's interesting, right? We think of compassion, Valentine's Day, the heart. It's actually good for cardiologists recommend these practices that we're doing together. Like the compassion meditation we're about to do, cardiologists recommend this as part of the treatment. It leads to lower inflammation at the cellular level in our bodies. It lowers inflammation. This is research from Carnegie Mellon. Is compassion mercy to one's opponents? So Robert, great question. Compassion is seeing our opponents as human, seeing them as full human beings. And I think it makes war almost impossible if you see people as full human beings. You don't want to harm the other person. Sometimes you can want to set boundaries, right? Compassion means you still can set boundaries, but it's not like you want the other person to suffer. And yes, we're definitely an adversarial profession. I think it's relevant. Like, you don't need to hate the other lawyer. You're doing your job to the best of your ability. They're doing their job. There's no personal bitterness, personal hatred, wish that the other person suffer. You are representing your client. You're an advocate for your client within the structure of the law, but it takes out that bite. Like, it takes out that desire to do nasty things to the opposite party. This is a human. You see the other lawyer as a human being doing their best, representing their client. You're representing yours. There's kind of a dignity there on both sides. So it does include understanding that the person who you consider your opponent or who doesn't share your values is a person who, just like you, has blind spots, has good days and bad days, has a family that cares for him or her, right? Has goals and dreams and makes mistakes and sometimes learns from them and sometimes doesn't learn from them, just like you. It's understanding that there is so much that unites you with every other being. Do we want to do a practice to try this out, kind of this point of view? Let's do another meditation practice. Let's kind of try this out, maybe with a loved one. The point I was trying to make is that compassion means not objectifying. The second you objectify a person, that's not compassion. The people we objectify most are, strangely enough, our loved ones, because we want a certain experience from a parent, a partner, like, you need to make me feel loved, needed. We objectify them and trying to get them to meet our needs. So let's do a common humanity meditation. Let's go through this mental process of understanding that, just like me, this person has hopes and dreams that I may never know of. Let's go through this meditation for our loved one. Choose the person who it's easiest to send compassion to. And we'll do this meditation. So, like, the person who naturally brings a smile to your face, do that person. It doesn't have to be the person you're technically closest to. So find your comfortable seat. We'll do a 5-minute practice. And begin by tuning into your breath. Place all your awareness for a moment again on your breath. Feel the breath enter the nose and exit the nose. And now imagine that you can send the breath right into your heart, that you could send the breath right into your heart, lungs, and chest. And imagine you could breathe out of the chest, lungs, and heart. Just connecting to this area for a few breaths, opening it up with your awareness. And now bring to mind a loved one. In your mind's eye, welcome the image of someone you really care about. someone you feel warmth toward. Someone who it's easy to send compassion to. And imagine this person smiling, beaming. See their face relaxed. Bringing that image right into your heart. And now, once again, bring awareness to your heart. Imagine you could breathe in and out of the heart. And as you breathe out, imagine you can extend a warm golden light from the center of your heart that carries all your feelings of warmth and gratitude for this person. Imagine that this light physically touches your loved one, bringing happiness and peace. And now repeat these phrases in your mind for your loved one. May you be happy. Focusing on the intention, the feeling behind the phrase. May you be happy. May you find safety and peace. Saying for this person, there is space in my heart for you just as you are. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you live with joy. Noticing how it felt to send those wishes. And acknowledging that although you know this person, you cannot fully know what this person is going through right now. Consider that this person, this loved one, just like you, has their own hopes and their own dreams. Considering the fact that just like me, this person has probably felt loneliness and heartbreak. And this person has good days and hard days. And at times, this person feels vulnerable or helpless. And sometimes this person feels very strong. And one more time, sending your loved one the wish. May you live with joy. And setting the intention yourself. May my words, may my actions, may even my thoughts contribute to this person's happiness and freedom from suffering. And now thank yourself for having done this practice. And take a deep breath in through the nose. Take a deep breath out through the mouth. Thank your body, thank your mind for letting you do this meditation. And coming back. Opening your eyes. And just put a word in the chat. How did that go? How did that go? How did that feel? How was that experience? In the meantime, I'll answer Joshua's question, which is a great question. What if the opposing counsel represents a terrible person? So I would say in that case, you do your job very well. As a lawyer, you do your job very, very well. We don't need to look down on the other person or hate the other person, because you don't actually know what truly happened. Even if you think they're representing someone terrible, there is no way for you to know that 100%. You can't know the full reality. You can't know the full story. It could be your hunch, but you do your job while we're advocating. But you don't need to look down on, judge, hate, think the other person is a monster. You can think they're a human being. They're doing their job. I might be wrong. So I think compassion is a kind of humbleness that you bring to any interaction with anyone, and the willingness to see a person non-judgmentally while still staying true to your values, while still advocating for the causes you want to advocate for, making the difference in the world you want to make, but without hating anyone, still seeing every single person with warmth and realizing I have my blind spots, they have their blind spots, every person has their blind spots, and that's just the nature of being human. So Joshua, that's how I'd answer that question. How did the meditation go? Brought me joy. Great, Ramla, thank you. Soothing, made my heart smile. Wonderful. And Robert, I think I just answered that question. So we have about 10 minutes left. I just want to share some more fantastic science with you. I think it's interesting that in terms of our mental health, compassion gives us greater happiness. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. That phrase from the Dalai Lama is absolutely right. It has been shown that the more compassion we practice, the happier we are. And it starts very early. Even in a 2-year-old, giving treats to others increases happiness of the 2-year-old more than receiving them. Giving a cupcake makes a 2-year-old feel happier than receiving it. So there's something about giving that stimulates our pleasure network. And in fact, our reward system, the very same part of the brain that is stimulated by eating chocolate cake or getting a gift, or when you're attracted to someone and you're next to that person, our reward system, it is also stimulated when you're being compassionate, or when you give to charity, or when you know you're treating someone fairly. I'll show you an image of this. That we have a certain reward network, a certain chemistry in our brain that lights up. When you get a new iPhone, it lights up. From consumerism, it lights up. Kind of, it's our pleasure center. And it also lights up when you're being compassionate. The difference is that many thrilling, pleasurable experiences, the pleasure fades with time. The pleasure we get from it decreases with time. Compassion works differently. It gives us lasting pleasure. So Barbara Fredrickson in her lab in North Carolina found that every time you're being compassionate, there is no hedonic adaptation. The pleasure we get from compassion doesn't decrease, it actually increases. The more you practice compassion, the happier you feel. It is the only type of pleasure that doesn't fade with time. We can only get that through gratitude, compassion, self-compassion. So it's the only kind of reliably positive experience that doesn't decrease. And I just find that so fascinating. Everything else, we're destined to hedonic adaptation. And I just want to, in the last few minutes, mention why it is that compassion makes us smarter. Usually, suffering lights up our amygdala. The amygdala is the little part of our brain responsible for freaking out. And when we freak out, we go on autopilot. We don't think, we just act. This is the part of our brain that's made to help us run from the lion. You don't want to stand there thinking, should I take the left part of the forest or the right part of the forest? Or should I go around that tree or toward that tree as I run away from this lion? You don't want to be weighing decisions. You just want to run. So the amygdala just makes us act. It doesn't make us consider what the best course of action is. When we see suffering, our amygdala lights up, we get on autopilot, and we're not always authentic to our values. We're not always acting as our wisest self. Compassion is associated with thinning in the amygdala, and therefore less reactivity. So you can choose your response. And also, as you do these meditations, your hippocampus actually beefs up. It gets bigger like a muscle. And that's the part of the brain responsible for learning and memory. People who do compassion meditation have actually been shown to have bigger volume brains. The brain actually grows in volume. Like a muscle grows when you exercise it. a brain grows in volume as you meditate. The good news about all of this compassion meditation is that with consistent mind training, if you do this meditation daily, your default response changes. If our default response right now is suffering, looking for threats, with time, the effect of neuroplasticity has shown that our minds change, our brains physically reshape, and you have a different mental experience. So this is why kind of consciously practicing certain things, consciously practicing compassion, self-compassion, meditating makes a lasting difference. And it gives us an alternate default state, not one of suffering, but one, for example, of warmth and presence and joy. And that is possible. So with that, I would love to ask all of you for a takeaway. So anything that you learned tonight. And because the chat disappears very quickly, I made a little survey. And if you don't mind for just a couple of minutes, 1 minute, sharing a sentence or two of anything you got out of tonight, one insight, one thing you want your future self to remember. I put the link over there. And as a thank you for sharing an insight, I'll send you a recorded compassion meditation that you can keep doing on your own. So you get a reward for doing a takeaway. I'll send you a couple of compassion meditations of my ways guiding it so you can keep doing it if you like.
Elizabeth?
Sorry, so yeah, I just want to give you like 1 minute and then I'll answer questions, and then we'll have 3 or 4 minutes for questions. So this is the link, and you can also ask questions there, and I'll get back to you by email. If you put questions there, I will get back to you. And I'll just give you 1 more minute, and then we'll have 5 minutes for questions. Okay, put a plus in the chat if you're done. Or as you become done, put a plus in the chat. And I still, in the last 5 minutes, I want to take a question or two. I'll give you a way of practicing compassion on the go informally. So I'll leave you with a practice that's simple that you can do anytime that will change your day. And then we'll do a 1 minute closing meditation practice. But first, put any questions in the chat or just ask a question. Unmute yourself and ask a question if you like. So I think Joshua had a question. Yeah, go ahead.
I did. I just, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to repeat the question that Robert had asked about whether being compassionate to others could actually increase your stress, because then you're feeling the pain of the people in the Ukraine, or you're feeling the pain of those who were not getting the civil rights that they deserve. Suddenly, you're taking on vicarious pain rather than just limiting yourself to the challenges you face in your daily life.
That's a great question. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Joshua. So what you're describing sounds to be more like empathetic distress. So feeling the pain of other people in the moment, that's something we do because we have a good heart and because we care. And that empathetic distress, it isn't always helpful to the other side. It's more helpful if we can stay calm and composed. And that's the first step of compassion. And then think, how can I help? And maybe you could donate money. Maybe it's through litigation. Maybe it's through letting a refugee stay with you. Whatever way, big or small, you can help. You can do that out of compassion, but you can still help without feeling the whole burden of the world, not only from your perspective, but also from their perspective. So one is empathy, the other is compassion. There's a lot of burnout that's related to empathy. There is no such thing as compassion burnout. If it's truly compassion, there is no such thing as burnout. So what we're training is a calm, centered response to suffering. It is possible. And it's very rewarding to train that. And I think it's a way to actually be more helpful to the people around you, whereas the default is empathy. Compassion takes training. Great question. And I'm so glad we could clear that up. Any other, maybe one more question from anyone? And you can just put it in the chat or you can ask it. I'm glad that was helpful, Joshua. Thank you for asking. So I want to leave you with a practice. And this practice, suddenly you'll feel like all the people around you got much nicer if you do this. So if you want to live in a world with nicer loved ones, I highly recommend it. Whenever you start an interaction with any person who you care about, before the interaction, think in your own mind, connect to the wish, may you be happy. Just send out a may you be happy. Maybe this person is late and you're waiting for them and they just threw your whole schedule off. You think, oh, what a jerk. And may he be happy. Just whenever you're dealing with any person, add that may you be happy. Maybe you're judging someone, add may you be happy. Start with that intention. You're texting your mom, you're texting your daughter, you're texting your coworker. Think, I really want happiness and long-term well-being for this person. Start your interactions with the intention of compassion, because then you see the human. You're not just seeing the role you want them to play in your life. If you have this phrase in your mind 5, 6, 7, 10 times a day, your interactions change because you start them from a different perspective through acknowledging the other person's humanity and then observe how the interaction changes. So that's a way to practice compassion on the go. And it can be, may you be healthy. It can be, may you be at ease. It can be, may you be free of suffering. Fill in the blank however you like, but start with the wish of kindness toward the other person in your mind. And then it changes how you will treat them. And I hope you find a way to do this every single day. We'll do just a 1-minute closing, but I just want to say that I started recently supporting people this way. If you want a daily reminder of kind of some of the things we talked about, of compassion, self-compassion, mindfulness, for free, I send a daily text about this. Like I send a daily morning text as a reminder about compassion, self-compassion. And if you want to get that text, you can always unsubscribe. You can text the word compassion to this phone number and I'll put you on the list. And you'll just get like a quote, a 1 or 2 sentence reminder of compassion, self-compassion, mindfulness awareness. It's a resource that a lot of people have enjoyed and you're welcome to join. And if you think there is any other community I can reach with compassion, with meditation, I especially love reaching the legal community because I think we don't talk about it enough. And there's tremendous stress and tremendous suffering in the legal community. Wait, put the number back up. Okay. If you think there's anyone else that I should be reaching, please connect to me. You can just text me on this number. I find that I get behind on email sometimes, but I'm not behind on my texts. So you can just text me and say, Elizabeth, I was at your talk. I think you should reach this group of people. I'm always very, very happy to. And with that, let's receive compassion. In the last 30 seconds, compassion has 2 parts. It has giving and receiving. So I want to end by you receiving, and I will send you some compassionate wishes so you can experience receiving them. So closing your eyes and receiving the wish. May you be at ease. May you always feel connected to yourself and to those around you. May your heart feel joy. May you love and be loved. May you be safe and protected. And may you feel happier. May you feel more energy. May you feel more ease in every part of your life with every day. And together, let's just set the intention to contribute to the happiness, to the well-being of all people everywhere, with our words, with our actions, with our hands and our voice and our hearts, and even with our thoughts, to contribute to the well-being of life on earth this Valentine's Day and beyond. And as you feel ready, opening your eyes, coming back, and just a huge thank you to Jennifer for organizing this, and to the New York State Bar Association for hosting, and a huge thank you to you for showing up when there are so many things you could have been doing on your Thursday night. A huge thank you to all of you for making this possible.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And it sounds like some people might want that phone number. So maybe if you could add that in the when you email people back if they filled out the survey.
Yeah, here,
maybe
let me put it in the chat. If you, yeah, it's just like a nice little daily reminder. So you text the word compassion to the numbers. This is the number. And if you want to get in touch, you can just get in touch that way. And again, I know that it takes a tremendous amount of effort to organize any event, including a virtual one. So a huge thank you to Jennifer.
Oh, no, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm so happy to have you here again. And I'm certain we'll have you on in the future as well.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Sweet dreams. You want to do your smile and
Yes.
little wave just so we can acknowledge each other.
Have a great night, everyone.